Princess Zaraeth stood in the great meeting hall of her father's palace. The walls were made of pure crystal that caught the light from 3 different suns. She had lived here all her life, but today felt different. Today would change everything. Her father, Emperor Valdris, sat on his throne made of starstone. His 4 eyes glowed blue as he spoke to the council members around him. "The humans have agreed to our terms," he said in their musical language. "The marriage will seal our alliance." Zaraeth touched the golden collar around her neck. It was a symbol of her royal blood, worn by Valdorian princesses for thousands of years. Soon she would have to give it up, not because she was dying, but because she was getting married to a creature she had never seen before. The humans were new to the galaxy. Their small blue planet was far from the center of civilization. Most species ignored them because they seemed weak and primitive. They had only just learned to travel between stars while other races had been doing it for millions of years. But then something strange happened. The Krillians attacked the human world 3 times. The Krillians were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They were giant insect-like creatures with sharp claws and armor that could stop most weapons. No one had ever beaten them in a fair fight. Yet somehow, the humans had won. Not just once, but 3 times. They had sent the Krillian fleets running back to dark space. The news shocked everyone in the known galaxy. "How did they do it?" Zaraeth had asked her father when the reports first came in. "We do not know," the Emperor had replied. "That is why we need this alliance. The humans have a secret that could protect us all." Now a human delegation had come to their world. They wanted to make a peace treaty. As part of the deal, Zaraeth would marry one of their people. It was an old custom. Royal marriages to show that 2 peoples would be friends forever. The door to the hall opened with a soft chime. Zaraeth turned to see the human delegation walking in. She had studied pictures of humans before, but seeing them in person was different. They walked on 2 legs, like her people did, but they looked so small and soft. Their skin had no scales or fur. They seemed so fragile. The leader of the group was an old human with gray hair. He wore simple clothes that looked nothing like the beautiful robes of other diplomats. Behind him walked 5 other humans, all looking around the crystal hall with wide eyes. But one human caught Zaraeth's attention. He stood at the back of the group, quiet and still. Unlike the others, he did not stare at the beautiful walls or the floating lights. Instead, his dark eyes moved carefully around the room, as if he was looking for something. He was taller than the other humans, with broad shoulders and dark hair. His clothes were the same simple style as the others, but something about the way he wore them was different. He stood very straight with his hands at his sides. There was something about him that made Zaraeth think of a sword that had been put away but was ready to be drawn at any moment. The old human stepped forward and bowed. "Your Imperial Majesty," he said through a translation device. "I am Ambassador Harrison. We are honored by your invitation." Emperor Valdris stood from his throne. "Welcome to Valdoria Prime, humans of Earth. We gather today to make history. Our 2 peoples will be joined in friendship that will last forever." The ceremony began as planned. Ancient words were spoken in both languages. Documents were signed with golden ink on crystal tablets. Zaraeth watched it all, but her eyes kept going back to the quiet human at the back of the group. When it came time for the marriage part of the ceremony, the quiet human stepped forward. "This is Marcus Chen," Ambassador Harrison said. "He will represent humanity in this union." Marcus walked up to where Zaraeth stood. Up close, she could see that his hands had small scars on them. His eyes were calm but alert, like a hunting cat that was pretending to sleep. When he bowed to her, the movement was perfect, not too low, not too high. Someone had trained him well in royal customs. "Your Highness," he said in careful Valdorian words. His accent was strange, but his pronunciation was correct. "I am honored by this trust." Zaraeth felt surprise. Most aliens never bothered to learn their language. They used translation devices and let machines do the talking, but this human had taken the time to learn proper words and manners. The marriage ceremony was simple. They each touched a crystal that would record their agreement. The crystal glowed bright blue, showing that the bond was made. According to the law, they were now married, even though it was only for show. After the ceremony, there was a great feast. Delegates from many worlds had come to see the historic event. Zaraeth sat at the high table, wearing her formal crown that was made from gems found in the hearts of dead stars. Marcus sat beside her, eating the strange foods with polite interest. "The marriage is only symbolic," her father had told her earlier. "After tomorrow, the human will return to his ship and go home. You will never see him again." But as Zaraeth watched Marcus during the feast, she began to wonder about that. There was something about this human that did not match what she had been told. The reports said humans were simple creatures, not much smarter than animals. But Marcus moved and spoke like someone who had been trained in the arts of court life. And there was something else. When a servant accidentally dropped a plate behind him, Marcus turned toward the sound faster than should have been possible. For just a moment, his hand moved toward his side as if reaching for something that was not there. Then he caught himself and smiled politely as if nothing had happened. Zaraeth had seen that reaction before. Her own bodyguards did the same thing when they heard unexpected noises. It was the automatic response of someone trained for battle. As the evening went on, she became more and more curious about her new husband. What secrets was he hiding? And what secrets were the humans hiding about how they had beaten the mighty Krillians? She decided she would find out, even if it meant breaking some rules. Tomorrow, before Marcus left forever, she would get answers to her questions. She had no idea that by tomorrow, everything she thought she knew about humans would be turned upside down. The wedding ceremony happened on a giant space station that floated between the stars. It was neutral ground where many different alien races could meet safely. The station was huge, with crystal walls and floating gardens that showed off the best of galactic civilization. Zaraeth wore her grandmother's wedding dress, made from silk that came from the web-spinning creatures of Altair 7. The dress changed colors as she moved, shifting from deep purple to bright silver. On her head was the crown of stars, worn by Valdorian brides for 10,000 years. Delegates from dozens of worlds watched the ceremony. There were the tall, blue-skinned Andromedans with their flowing robes. The crystal beings from the core worlds hummed in harmony as they observed. Even the proud Centaurians had sent representatives, despite their usual refusal to attend primitive ceremonies. Marcus stood beside her at the altar. He wore formal human clothes that looked simple compared to all the alien finery around them. But Zaraeth noticed that even in wedding clothes he carried himself like a soldier. His back was straight, his eyes alert, always watching the crowd. The ceremony followed ancient Valdorian traditions. They spoke vows in both their languages while holding a crystal that would bind their promises. When the crystal glowed with inner light, the crowd cheered in dozens of different languages. But all through the ceremony, Zaraeth felt like she was missing something important. The other humans in the delegation seemed nervous, constantly looking around as if expecting trouble. Ambassador Harrison smiled and nodded at all the right moments, but his eyes never stopped moving either. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the great reception hall. Tables floated in the air, laden with foods from 100 worlds. Music played that could be enjoyed by beings with different types of hearing. Lights danced overhead in patterns that meant celebration in the universal language of color. Zaraeth performed her duties as the bride, greeting important guests and accepting their congratulations. But she kept watching Marcus. He was polite to everyone who spoke to him, but he seemed to be studying them more than socializing with them. When she finally had a chance, she approached him near one of the great windows that showed the stars outside. "You are not what I expected," she said, using the translation device so he could understand her perfectly. Marcus turned to look at her. And for the first time since they met, he smiled. It was a real smile, not the polite expression he had worn during the ceremony. "Neither are you, Your Highness," he replied. "I was told that Valdorian royalty were cold and calculating." "I am," Zaraeth said automatically, then paused. "What did you expect from me?" "Someone who would not notice that I am not really a diplomat," Marcus said quietly. Zaraeth felt her 4 eyes widen in surprise. Before she could ask what he meant, alarms began screaming throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red, and a voice spoke in the common galactic language. "Alert! Unknown ships approaching. All delegates to secure areas immediately." Through the great window, Zaraeth could see ships dropping out of hyperspace. They were black as the space between stars, with hulls covered in spikes and weapon ports. She recognized them immediately and felt ice form in her veins. Krillian warships, dozens of them. The reception hall erupted in panic. Delegates from peaceful worlds screamed and ran for the exits. Even the proud warrior races looked worried as they saw how many enemy ships there were. But Marcus did not run. Instead, his whole body seemed to change in an instant. The polite diplomat disappeared like smoke, replaced by something much more dangerous. His eyes became hard and calculating. His stance shifted to one that would let him move quickly in any direction. "Your Highness," he said, and his voice was completely different now. It was the voice of someone used to giving orders in battle. "We need to move. Now." "What?" Zaraeth was confused by the sudden change in him. "The Krillians are not here for the station," Marcus said, grabbing her arm gently but firmly. "They are here for you, and for me. This attack is meant to destroy our alliance before it can really begin." Before she could ask how he knew this, the first explosion rocked the station. Emergency shields came online, but everyone knew they would not last long against a full Krillian assault fleet. Marcus was already moving, pulling her away from the windows toward a side exit. "Stay close to me," he ordered. "Do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. Do you understand?" Zaraeth was a princess of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. She was not used to taking orders from anyone except her father, but something in Marcus's voice made her nod without thinking. As they reached the exit, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in a red glow that made shadows dance on the walls. In the distance, they could hear the sound of metal being torn apart as Krillian boarding pods smashed through the station's hull. "How do you know so much about what they are doing?" Zaraeth demanded as they moved through corridors filled with running, screaming aliens. "Because I have fought them before," Marcus replied, checking each intersection before they crossed it. "Many times. But the reports said the humans only fought them in space battles around your home world." Marcus stopped and looked at her. In the red emergency lighting, his face looked hard and dangerous. "Princess, there is a lot about humans that your intelligence reports got wrong." Another explosion shook the station. This one was closer, and they could hear the sound that every civilized being feared, the clicking and screeching of Krillian warriors moving through the corridors. Marcus reached inside his formal jacket and pulled out a weapon. It was small and black, nothing like the energy weapons most races used. Zaraeth had never seen anything like it. "What is that?" she asked. "Something that will kill Krillians," he replied simply. "Stay behind me." The first group of Krillian soldiers came around the corner ahead of them. They were 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor that could stop most energy blasts. Their claws could cut through steel, and their mandibles could bite through bone. They were the nightmare that haunted the dreams of peaceful species across the galaxy. Marcus raised his strange weapon and fired 3 times. The sounds were sharp cracks, not the usual hum of energy weapons. All three Krillians fell down and did not get back up. Zara Eth stared in shock. She had seen the best Valdorian warriors fight Krillians in training simulations. It usually took a full squad with heavy weapons to bring down even one of the creatures. But this human had just killed 3 of them as easily as swatting insects. "Impossible," she whispered. "Not impossible," Marcus said, reloading his weapon with quick, practiced movements. "Just different. Humans fight differently than the rest of the galaxy." More Krillians appeared at the far end of the corridor. Marcus grabbed Zara Eth's hand and pulled her down a side passage. "We need to get to the evacuation ships," he said. "But first, I need to tell you something important." "What?" "My name really is Marcus Chen, but I am not a diplomat. I am a lieutenant commander in the Human Expeditionary Forces. And this marriage?" He looked at her seriously. "It was not supposed to be just for show." As more explosions shook the station and the sounds of battle grew closer, Zara Eth realized that everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong, and that her new husband was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The emergency lights cast everything in blood red as Marcus led Zara Eth through the station's corridors. Behind them, they could hear the terrible sounds of Krillian warriors hunting through the complex. The clicking of their claws on metal floors mixed with the screams of aliens who had been caught. "This way," Marcus whispered, checking around a corner before motioning for her to follow. His formal wedding clothes were torn now, and Zara Eth could see that he had more weapons hidden underneath. Small knives, another gun, and things she could not identify. "How many weapons are you carrying?" she asked in amazement. "Enough," he replied, not taking his eyes off the corridor ahead. "Human formal wear is designed differently than most species think." They moved quickly but carefully through the station. Marcus seemed to know exactly where they were going, as if he had studied maps of the place before coming here. Every few minutes, they would hear Krillian voices echoing from nearby passages, and Marcus would change their route to avoid them. "You said you are not really a diplomat," Zara Eth said, as they hid in an empty conference room while a patrol passed by outside. "If the marriage was not for show, then what is really happening?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, listening to make sure the Krillians were gone. Then he looked at her with those serious dark eyes. "Your father wanted an alliance with humanity. Our leaders wanted the same thing. But both sides were nervous about trusting a species they did not understand. So we decided to do what humans always do when we are not sure about something. We sent soldiers instead of diplomats, people who could fight if things went wrong, and who could learn the truth about your people by living among them." Zara Eth felt her stomach drop. "You have been spying on us." "We have been protecting you," Marcus corrected. 3 months ago, human intelligence learned that the Krillians were planning a major attack on the Valdorian core worlds. They were going to wait until after this ceremony, then strike when your military was celebrating the new alliance. The sounds outside faded, and Marcus carefully opened the door. "The attack on this station is not random. They are trying to kill the alliance before it can protect your people." As they started moving again, Zara Eth's mind raced. "But why would they attack during the ceremony? There are representatives from dozens of worlds here." "Because they want to send a message," Marcus said grimly. "If they can destroy a peace conference and kill the delegates, other species will be too afraid to stand against them." They reached a main corridor that led toward the docking bays where the evacuation ships waited. But as they stepped out of the side passage, Krillian warriors were waiting for them. There were 6 of them, arranged in a hunting formation that blocked all escape routes. They were huge creatures, each one 3 meters tall and covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. Their 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through almost anything, and their insect-like faces showed rows of sharp teeth. The leader of the group spoke in the harsh Krillian language, which the station's translation system turned into words they could understand. The pale female will come with us. The small male will die quickly if he does not resist. Marcus stepped in front of Zara-Eth. In his hand, the small black weapon looked tiny compared to the massive creatures facing them. "Princess," he said quietly, "stay directly behind me. Do not move until I tell you." "There are 6 of them," Zara-Eth whispered. "No one fights 6 Krillians alone." "Humans do," Marcus replied. The first Krillian charged at him with a roar that shook the walls. Marcus moved faster than Zara-Eth thought possible for any living being. He stepped to the side at the last second, letting the creature rush past him, then put 3 bullets into its head before it could turn around. The second and third Krillians attacked together, trying to overwhelm him with their 4-armed fighting style. Marcus dropped to one knee, rolling under their claws, and came up shooting. Both creatures fell within seconds. The remaining 3 tried to spread out and surround him, but Marcus was already moving again. He threw one of his knives, and it found the gap in a Krillian's armor at the neck. As that one fell, he shot the 5th with perfect accuracy. The last Krillian, seeing its pack destroyed, tried to run. Marcus let it take 3 steps before putting a bullet through its spine. The entire fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Zara-Eth stood frozen, unable to believe what she had just seen. Krillians were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed entire fleets. The idea that any single being could fight them hand to hand and win was beyond impossible. Yet Marcus had not just won. He had made it look easy. "How?" she whispered. Marcus was already reloading his weapon and checking the bodies to make sure they were dead. "Krillians are good fighters," he said calmly. "But they fight the way they have always fought. They never learn to adapt. But they are so strong, so fast." "Strength and speed mean nothing if you cannot hit your target," Marcus replied. He pulled his knife out of the dead Krillian's neck and wiped it clean. "Humans learned long ago that the key to winning a fight is not being stronger. It is being smarter." As they continued toward the evacuation ships, Marcus explained more. "Every human child learns about war from the time they are old enough to read. We study famous battles, learn about tactics and strategy. We practice fighting from many different cultures and time periods." "But why?" Zara-Eth asked. "Most civilized species gave up warfare thousands of years ago. Because we learned that sometimes the only way to have peace is to be better at war than anyone who wants to take it away from you." They reached the docking bay to find chaos. Hundreds of aliens were trying to get onto evacuation ships, pushing and fighting each other in their panic. Krillian boarding parties were attacking from multiple directions, and security forces were being overwhelmed. Marcus surveyed the situation quickly. "We need to get to that Valdorian ship," he said, pointing to a sleek vessel at the far end of the bay. "But there are at least 20 Krillians between here and there." "That is suicide," Zara-Eth said. Marcus smiled, and for the first time it was not a gentle expression. It was the smile of a predator who had found prey. "Princess, let me show you what humans call acceptable odds." Before she could ask what he meant, Marcus was already moving into the battle. And Zara-Eth, watching him fight his way through enemies that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, began to understand why the Krillians had failed to conquer one small blue world. Humans, she realized, were not the primitive creatures everyone thought they were. They were something much more dangerous and much more valuable as allies. Marcus moved through the docking bay like death itself had taken human form. Zara-Eth followed behind him, watching in amazement as her husband cut through Krillian warriors that had sent entire armies running in fear. The first group of enemies tried to rush him together. Marcus threw something small and round at their feet. The explosion that followed was not large, but it was perfectly placed. The Krillians stumbled, and Marcus was already among them with his knife and gun working in perfect harmony. "Stay close," he called back to her as he moved toward the next group. "But do not get in my line of fire." Zara-Eth had trained with the best Valdorian warriors since she was a child. She thought she understood combat. But watching Marcus fight was like seeing a master artist paint with violence instead of colors. Every movement had a purpose. Every shot found its target. Every step put him in exactly the right place to survive what should have been an impossible battle. A Krillian came at them from the side, trying to get around Marcus to attack Zara-Eth directly. Marcus spun and fired without even looking, the bullet taking the creature in the eye. He had heard it coming and known exactly where it would be. "How can you fight like this?" Zara-Eth asked, as they took cover behind some cargo containers. Around them, the battle raged as other species tried desperately to reach the evacuation ships. "Practice," Marcus said, changing the power cell in his weapon. "Every human spends time in military service. We learn to fight not just with weapons, but with our minds." He pointed to where a group of Centaurian warriors were struggling against 3 Krillians. The Centaurians were brave and strong, but they were losing because they fought like individuals. Each one tried to prove his own courage instead of working together. "See how they fight? Each one wants to be the hero. That is how most species approach combat." Marcus raised his weapon and fired several precise shots. The 3 Krillians fell, and the surprised Centaurians looked around to see who had helped them. "Humans learned something different," Marcus continued as they started moving again. "We learned that the goal is not to be brave or heroic. The goal is to win quickly and go home alive." They reached another group of Krillians that was blocking the path to their ship. This time, Marcus did something that made Zara-Eth's eyes widen even more. He started talking to her in a normal voice, loud enough for the enemies to hear. "The thing about Krillians," he said conversationally as he pulled out a different weapon, "is that they are very good at fighting in straight lines. They charge forward, use their strength and claws, and expect their enemies to be too scared to think clearly." The Krillians heard him talking and became angry. They roared their war cries and charged directly at him, just as he had said they would. "But humans learned to fight creatures much more dangerous than Krillians," Marcus continued, stepping aside and letting them run past him into a trap he had prepared. "We learned to hunt animals that were bigger, stronger, and faster than us. We learned that intelligence beats strength every time." The trap was simple but effective. The Krillians ran into an area where Marcus had placed several small explosives. When they went off, the creatures were not killed, but they were stunned and off balance. Marcus finished them quickly with precise shots. As they finally reached the Valdorian evacuation ship, Zara-Eth grabbed Marcus's arm. "You keep saying we learned this and humans learned that, but these are things you know personally. You have fought Krillians before many times. Where? When?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth to tell her. Around them, other survivors were climbing aboard ships and preparing to leave. The sounds of battle were getting closer as more Krillian boarding parties arrived. "The 3 attacks on Earth," he said finally. "I was there for all of them. So were most of the humans on this diplomatic mission." "But the reports said those were space battles." "The reports were designed to make other species feel better about asking for our help," Marcus interrupted. "The truth is that Krillians did more than just attack our ships. They landed troops on Earth, millions of them." Zara-Eth felt cold despite the heat from nearby fires. "What happened?" "We killed them all," Marcus said simply. "Every single one. It took 3 years, but we hunted down every Krillian that set foot on our world." As they boarded the ship, Marcus continued explaining. Other species fight wars in space with big ships and energy weapons. They try to avoid ground combat because it is messy and dangerous. But humans? We have been fighting ground wars for our entire history. When the Krillians came to our planet, they thought they were invading a soft target. The ship began to move, pulling away from the dying station. Through the windows, Zara-Eth could see other evacuation vessels escaping while Krillian fighters tried to stop them. Instead, Marcus said, they found themselves fighting an entire world full of creatures that had been preparing for that kind of war for thousands of years. Every human city had defense plans. Every human citizen knew how to fight. We turned our whole planet into one giant trap. Zara-Eth was beginning to understand something that terrified and amazed her at the same time. You are saying that humans are all warriors. Not warriors, Marcus corrected. Soldiers. There is a difference. Warriors fight for honor and glory. Soldiers fight to win and protect what they love. An explosion outside shook the ship, and alarms began ringing. Through the communication system, they heard the captain's voice. Krillian fighters are pursuing us. All passengers to emergency positions. But Marcus was not looking worried. Instead, he was checking his watch and smiling. Right on time, he said. What do you mean? Zara-Eth asked. Before Marcus could answer, the space around them filled with new ships. They were smaller than the massive Krillian vessels, but they moved with perfect coordination. Human ships, dropping out of hyperspace in formation. You see, Princess, Marcus said as the human fleet engaged the Krillians with devastating efficiency. The diplomatic mission was never just about getting married and signing treaties. It was about positioning human forces to protect our new allies when the Krillians inevitably attacked. Zara-Eth watched through the window as 3 small human ships destroyed a Krillian heavy cruiser using tactics she had never seen before. They worked together like fingers on a hand, each ship knowing exactly what the others would do. Your people knew this attack was coming, she said. We planned for it, Marcus replied. Humans always plan for the worst-case scenario. That way, when bad things happen, we are ready. As the last Krillian ship fled or was destroyed, Zara-Eth realized that her understanding of the universe had just been turned completely upside down. The humans were not primitive creatures seeking protection from advanced civilizations. They were something far more dangerous and valuable, a species that had mastered the art of war so completely that they made the galaxy's most feared predators look like children playing games. The Valdorian ship was safe now, surrounded by the human fleet as they traveled back toward her home world. But Zara-Eth could not stop thinking about what she had seen. She stood in the observation deck, watching the human vessels move in perfect formation around them. Marcus found her there an hour after the battle ended. He had changed out of his torn formal clothes into a simple uniform that was clearly military. Without the pretense of being a diplomat, he looked more comfortable, more like himself. I should have told you the truth from the beginning, he said, standing beside her at the window. Which truth? Zara-Eth asked. That you are not a diplomat, that the marriage was real, or that your entire species is made up of warriors pretending to be civilized? Marcus smiled at that. We are not pretending to be civilized, Princess. We are civilized. But we learned that civilization has to be defended, or it does not survive. Outside, one of the human ships was docking with a damaged Centaurian vessel to offer help. Zara-Eth watched human medics and engineers transfer over to assist the aliens who had been injured in the battle. I do not understand, she said. If humans are so good at war, why do you help others? Why not just conquer everyone like the Krillians try to do? Because conquest is not survival, Marcus replied. Humans learned that lesson the hard way, many times in our history. You cannot build a lasting civilization by destroying everyone else. You build it by making allies who want to protect the same things you do. A human officer appeared in the doorway and saluted Marcus. "Sir, Captain Rodriguez requests your presence on the bridge. We are getting reports of Krillian fleet movements in several sectors." Marcus nodded. "Tell her I will be there in 5 minutes." The officer left, and Marcus turned back to Zara-Eth. "I have to go coordinate our response with your father's military, but first, I need to know something." "What?" "The marriage ceremony we went through. It was legally binding under both human and Valdorian law. That was not an accident. Our governments really do want this alliance to work, and they believe that personal connections between our peoples will make it stronger." Zara-Eth looked at him carefully. "Are you asking me if I want to stay married to you?" "I'm asking if you think you could be married to someone whose job is to fight wars to protect the things he cares about." She was quiet for a long moment, thinking about everything that had happened. A day ago, she had been a princess whose biggest worry was which dress to wear to formal events. Now she was married to a human warrior, and her understanding of the galaxy had been completely changed. "What would that mean?" she asked finally. "Being married to you for real? It would mean that Earth is now your home too if you want it to be. It would mean learning about human culture and helping our peoples understand each other. And it would mean that sometimes I would have to go fight battles to keep both our worlds safe." Through the window, Zara-Eth could see her father's ships joining the human fleet. Valdorian vessels with their crystal hulls and elegant designs flying alongside human ships that looked like they had been built for war. Despite how different they looked, they were working together perfectly. "My father will want to know everything about human military capabilities," she said, "and we will share that information with him," Marcus replied. "That is what allies do. We trust each other with our secrets so we can defend each other better." "Even the secret about how you really defeated the Krillians?" Marcus nodded seriously. "Especially that. The Krillians are not going to give up just because they lost one battle. They will keep coming until someone stops them permanently, and that will take more than just human forces." Zara-Eth thought about the Krillian warriors she had seen Marcus kill so easily. For generations, her people had feared those creatures, but Marcus had made them look weak and clumsy. "How many other species think humans are primitive and harmless?" "Most of them," Marcus admitted, "and we prefer it that way. It is easier to protect people when your enemies underestimate you." A communication signal chimed, and her father's face appeared on the screen in the wall. Emperor Valdris looked older than when she had last seen him, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "Daughter," he said in their musical language, "I have been speaking with the human commanders. These people are remarkable. They have offered to help us redesign our entire defense strategy." "Father, are you certain we can trust them?" The Emperor smiled. "Zara-Eth, they just saved your life and destroyed a Krillian fleet to protect our evacuation ships. More importantly, they have shown us something we thought was impossible, that the Krillians can be beaten." After the communication ended, Zara-Eth turned to Marcus. "There is something I need to understand. If humans are so powerful, why did you need an alliance with us at all?" "Because being good at war does not make you good at everything else," Marcus said. "Humans are excellent fighters, but we are new to this galaxy. We need allies who understand trade, diplomacy, science, art, all the things that make civilization worth protecting." "And what do we need from you?" "Protection," Marcus said simply. "The Krillians are just one threat. There are others out there, species that see peaceful civilizations as easy targets. With humans as your allies, those threats will have to think twice." Zara-Eth walked closer to the window, watching the mixed fleet of ships heading toward her home world. "This alliance, it will change everything, will it not? Not just for our peoples, but for the whole galaxy." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "Other species will have to choose sides. Some will want to join us because they value peace and cooperation. Others will see us as a threat to their own plans for conquest. And the marriage? What role does that play? Marcus joined her at the window. It shows that humans and Valdorians can become family, not just allies. It proves that we are willing to trust each other completely. As Zara-Eth looked at the stars ahead, she made her decision. Then I suppose we should make this marriage work, should we not? For the sake of both our peoples. Are you sure? Marcus asked. Being married to a human will be very different from what you expected your life to be. Zara-Eth smiled, and it was an expression that would have surprised many who thought they knew the proper Valdorian princess. Marcus, a few hours ago I watched my husband single-handedly fight through an army of Krillians to keep me safe. I think I can handle whatever else comes along. Later, as their ship approached Valdoria Prime with its escort of human and Valdorian vessels, news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy. The story of how humans and Valdorians had worked together to defeat a Krillian assault became the talk of every world. Some species were impressed and wanted to learn more about these powerful humans. Others were frightened and began making their own plans. But everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy would never be the same. And on the bridge of the lead ship, Princess Zara-Eth stood beside her husband as he coordinated with both fleets, learning the reality of what it meant to be married to a human warrior. She was discovering that being astonished by humans was something she would probably never get tired of. The Krillians had made a mistake when they attacked the wedding. They thought they were preventing an alliance between two weak species. Instead, they had created something much more dangerous, a partnership between the galaxy's greatest warriors and one of its most advanced civilizations. It was a combination that would reshape the stars themselves.